The explosion threw Commander Marcus Cole across the bridge of his ship. Metal screamed. Lights died. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the cold emptiness of space rushing in through a torn hole. When Marcus opened his eyes again, he was not dead. He almost wished he was. He lay on a floor made of something that looked like glass but felt warm under his fingers. The walls around him glowed with soft purple light. Strange symbols floated in the air like living things. This was not his ship. This was not anywhere humans had ever been. Marcus pushed himself up slowly. His body hurt everywhere, but nothing seemed broken. His uniform was torn and covered in dried blood, but he could move. He looked around and saw that he was in some kind of cell. There were no bars, but when he walked toward the open doorway, an invisible force pushed him back. He was a prisoner. For 3 days, Marcus sat in that cell. Strange creatures came to look at him through the invisible wall. They were tall, much taller than any human. Their skin was silver and seemed to glow from inside. Their eyes were purple like broken gems, and they had no hair on their smooth heads. They pointed at him and made sounds he could not understand. They looked at him the way humans might look at an animal in a zoo. On the 4th day, guards came for him. They were the same silver creatures but wore armor that shifted colors like oil on water. They grabbed his arms and pulled him through hallways that seemed to go on forever. The ship he was on was massive, bigger than anything humans had ever built. Marcus tried to count the turns they made, tried to remember the path, but it was impossible. Everything looked the same and different at once. Finally, they reached a huge door that opened without anyone touching it. The room beyond was enormous. Hundreds of the silver creatures stood on platforms that rose up the walls like seats in a stadium. At the far end sat a throne made of crystal that caught the light and threw it in 1,000 directions. And on that throne sat a queen. Marcus knew she was a queen before anyone told him. It was in the way she held herself, in the way every eye in the room watched her, in the power that seemed to flow from her like heat from a fire. She was beautiful in a way that was hard to describe. Her silver skin was brighter than the others. Her eyes were deeper purple, almost violet. She wore a crown of floating crystals that orbited her head slowly. The guards threw Marcus to the floor at the base of her throne. A creature beside the queen spoke in a language Marcus could not understand. Then something clicked in his ear, a translator device they must have put in while he was unconscious, and suddenly he could hear the words. "This is the creature we found in the small vessel near the Kepler region. It calls itself human. It is the first of its kind we have captured." The queen leaned forward slightly. Her eyes studied Marcus like he was a puzzle she wanted to solve. "Stand it up," she commanded. Her voice was cold and clear like winter wind. The guards pulled Marcus to his feet. He stood before the queen, dirty and bleeding, and small compared to everyone around him. The creatures in the audience made sounds that might have been laughter. "It is tiny," someone called out. "Weak. Look at it shake." Marcus was not shaking from fear. He was shaking from anger. He had served Earth for 15 years. He had faced pirates and rebels and the cold death of space itself. He would not be mocked by aliens who had attacked his ship without warning. "Kneel before Queen Solara Vinthal," the creature beside the throne commanded. "Kneel before the ruler of the Valanthi Dominion, conqueror of 300 star systems." Marcus looked up at the queen. She was watching him with those strange purple eyes, waiting to see what he would do. Everyone was waiting. In this room full of giants, he was supposed to be small. He was supposed to be afraid. He straightened his back instead. "I don't kneel to anyone I haven't chosen to respect," Marcus said. The room exploded with angry sounds. Guards rushed forward with weapons drawn. The creature beside the throne screamed for his death. But Marcus kept his eyes on the queen. Only the queen. For a long moment, she did nothing. Then, slowly, she raised one hand. Everyone stopped. The room went silent. "Interesting," Queen Solara said. She tilted her head, looking at Marcus as if seeing him for the first time. 300 species have stood where you stand now. All of them knelt. Many of them begged. You do neither. "Maybe you've been meeting the wrong species," Marcus replied. More angry sounds from the crowd, but the queen silenced them with a look. You are either very brave or very stupid. Human. My people have a saying, Marcus said. The two are often the same thing. Something changed in the Queen's eyes. It was small, just a flicker, but Marcus saw it. Curiosity. Real curiosity. Lord Kethvern, the Queen said, turning to a large Valanthi male who stood near her throne. He was bigger than the others, with scars on his silver face. What do you recommend we do with this creature? Kethvern looked at Marcus with disgust. Kill it, slowly. It has insulted you and the entire Dominion. Its death will be a message to any other primitive species that dares to show disrespect. The Queen nodded slowly, as if considering his words. Then she turned back to Marcus. And you, human, what do you think I should do with you? Marcus knew his answer might be his last words. He did not care. So whatever you do, do it knowing that I'm not the last human you'll meet. My people will come looking for me. And when they find out what happened here, they won't kneel either. We never do. The Queen was silent for a long time. The whole room waited. Lord Kethvern's hand moved toward his weapon. Then Queen Solara smiled. It was a small smile, cold and sharp like a blade, but it was real. This human is not to be killed, she announced. I am placing it under my personal supervision for cultural study. It will remain in the royal quarter until I decide otherwise. Lord Kethvern stepped forward. My queen, this is highly unusual. The creature is dangerous and disrespectful. It should be made an example. Are you questioning my decision, Lord Kethvern? The Queen asked. Her voice was soft, but there was steel underneath. Kethvern stopped. He bowed his head. No, my queen. Good. Queen Solara stood from her throne. She was even taller than Marcus had thought. Nearly 8 feet of silver light and power. Take the human to the guest quarters in my wing. See that it is fed and cleaned. I will speak with it tomorrow. As the guards led Marcus away, he looked back one last time. The Queen was watching him go. Her face showed nothing, but her eyes were alive with something new. Marcus did not know it yet. But his refusal to kneel had changed everything. Not just for him, but for 2 civilizations that were about to collide in ways neither could imagine. The prisoner had just become the most interesting thing in the Valanthi Dominion. The guest quarters were nicer than any place Marcus had ever lived. The bed was soft like sleeping on clouds. The walls changed color based on his mood. Food appeared on a table whenever he was hungry. Strange but delicious things he had no names for. But it was still a prison. The door only opened when guards came. For the first week, scientists visited him. They scanned his body with floating devices. They took samples of his blood and hair. They asked him questions about human biology that made him uncomfortable. Marcus answered what he could and refused to answer what he would not. Then the Queen came. She arrived without warning. Stepping through his door while he was exercising on the floor, Marcus jumped to his feet, surprised to see her without guards or attendants. She wore simpler clothes than before, dark robes that made her silver skin glow brighter. You do strange movements, she said, watching him with those purple eyes. Push-ups, Marcus explained. They keep my body strong. Your body is weak compared to Valentha. Why bother maintaining something so fragile? Marcus smiled. Because it's mine, and I plan to use it to escape someday. The Queen tilted her head. You say that to my face. You know, I could have you killed for such words. You could have killed me a week ago. You didn't. I figure you want something from me that requires me alive. Queen Solara was quiet for a moment. Then she did something that surprised Marcus. She laughed. It was a small sound, almost rusty, like she had not laughed in a long time. You are correct, human. You interest me. Your species interests me. She walked to the window that showed stars streaming past. Tell me about your world, so Marcus told her. He told her about Earth, a small blue planet with billions of people crowded onto one tiny rock. He told her about oceans and mountains and forests. He told her about cities that never slept and villages that had not changed in centuries. He told her about wars that killed millions and peace that never lasted. The Queen listened without speaking. When he finished, she shook her head slowly. Your species is chaos, she said. No psychic bonds to connect your minds. No clear hierarchy to maintain order. How do you not destroy yourselves? We almost do, sometimes, Marcus admitted. But we keep going. We fight, we fall, we get back up. That's what humans do. But why? What drives you forward when logic says you should fail? Marcus thought about the question. It was a good one, Hopi finally said. We believe tomorrow can be better than today. Even when everything is terrible, we believe things can change. And that belief gives us strength to keep fighting. Queen said nothing, but Marcus saw something in her eyes that looked almost like longing. After that first visit, Queen Solara came often. Sometimes they talked for hours about the differences between their peoples. Marcus learned that the Velanthi were connected by psychic bonds from birth. They could feel each other's emotions, share thoughts across vast distances. It made them unified but also trapped. No Velanthi could hide their true feelings from others. It sounds peaceful, Marcus said one evening. It sounds like prison, Solara replied, her voice bitter. Imagine never having a thought that was truly yours. Imagine every fear, every doubt, every weakness being known by everyone around you. She looked at Marcus with something like envy. You humans are alone in your heads. You can think whatever you want. You can lie. You can pretend. You can be anyone you choose to be. It can be lonely, Marcus said. Being alone in your head? Perhaps! But at least the loneliness is yours. Marcus began to understand the Queen better. She was young, he learned. Only 40 years old, which was barely adult by Velanthi standards. Her father had been killed 2 years ago by assassins who were never found. She had been forced onto the throne before she was ready, surrounded by advisors who saw her as a puppet to control. Lord Kethvern was the worst. He had been her father's general, a war hero with loyal soldiers throughout the fleet. He believed the Dominion needed a strong ruler, and he did not believe Solara was strong enough. He waits for me to fail, Solara told Marcus. Every decision I make, he watches. Every mistake, he remembers. The other noble houses listen to him more than they listen to me. So prove him wrong, Marcus said. Show them you're stronger than they think. How? Everything I do is questioned. Everyone I trust might be his spy. Marcus leaned forward. You're talking to me, aren't you? I'm probably the only person on this ship who has nothing to gain from lying to you. The Queen looked at him for a long moment. Something passed between them, something neither could name. You are a strange creature, Marcus Cole, she said softly. You should fear me. Instead, you challenge me. You should hate me for making you a prisoner. Instead, you try to help me. My people have another saying, Marcus replied. Keep your friends close, and your enemies closer. I'm still figuring out which one you are. Weeks passed. The visits continued. And slowly, without either of them realizing it, the prisoner and the Queen became something else. Something neither had expected, but they were being watched. Lord Kethvern had spies everywhere. He learned about the Queen's visits to the human. He learned about their long conversations, the way she laughed at his strange jokes, the way she sought his counsel on matters of state. It was exactly the opportunity he had been waiting for. At a great banquet celebrating a military victory, Kethvern made his move. My Queen, he announced in front of hundreds of nobles, I have disturbing news. Our physicians report that you have been spending excessive time with the human creature. They fear its primitive mind may be contaminating your psychic bonds. The room went silent. All eyes turned to Solara. It has been examined, Kethvern continued, his voice dripping with false concern. Humans produce certain chemicals that can affect Velanthi brain function. It is possible you have been compromised without knowing it. Whispers spread through the crowd like fire. Solara's face went pale. She tried to speak, but Kethvern was not finished. I propose the human be executed immediately, and the Queen submit to a full mental examination to ensure she has not been damaged. Guards brought Marcus into the room in chains. He looked around at the hostile faces, the fear and anger directed at him. He understood what was happening. This was a trap, and Solara was caught in it. The Queen is weak, someone muttered. She has been corrupted, another voice agreed. Solara sat frozen on her throne. For a terrible moment, Marcus thought she might give in. The pressure was enormous. Her entire court was turning against her. Then Marcus spoke. "Where I come from," he said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "A leader isn't measured by the power they're born with. They're measured by the courage to stand when everyone else wants them to fall." He looked directly at Solara. Their eyes met across the crowded room. "You're stronger than they'll ever understand. Don't let them see you flinch." Something changed in the queen's face. Her fear melted away. Her back straightened. When she spoke, her voice was iron. "This human is under my protection. Challenge that again, Lord Kethvern, and you challenge me." Kethvern stepped back, surprised by her strength. The whispers stopped. For now, the queen had won. But as Marcus was led back to his quarters, he saw the look in Kethvern's eyes. This was not over. The war was just beginning. The attack came 3 weeks later, in the dead of the night cycle. Marcus woke to the sound of explosions shaking the ship. Red lights flashed everywhere. Alarms screamed in languages he did not understand. He jumped out of bed just as his door burst open. It was not guards who stood there. It was Queen Solara, wearing battle armor and carrying a weapon that glowed with deadly light. "Come with me," she said. Now, Marcus did not ask questions. He followed her through hallways filled with smoke and chaos. Bodies lay on the floor, both attackers and defenders. The queen moved fast, shooting anyone who got in their way. Marcus grabbed a weapon from a fallen guard and fought beside her. "What is happening?" he finally asked as they ran. Kethvern Solara spat the name like poison. "He has 3 noble houses supporting him. Half the fleet has turned traitor. He is trying to take my throne." They reached a small hangar where a single ship waited. A handful of loyal guards were holding off attackers at the entrance. When they saw the queen, relief flooded their faces. "Your Majesty, the escape route is still clear. You must go now." Solara hesitated. She looked back at the chaos behind her, the palace she had called home her entire life. The throne her family had held for 10,000 years. "My people," she whispered, "will die if you die," Marcus said firmly. "You can't fight for them if you're dead. We need to go." The queen closed her eyes for one painful moment. Then she nodded and ran for the ship. They barely escaped. Kethvern's fleet filled the space around the palace ship, but the small vessel was fast and the pilot was skilled. They jumped into hyperspace just as enemy weapons fire reached them. For a long time, no one spoke. The ship was crowded with perhaps 20 survivors. Loyal guards, a few servants, some minor nobles who had stayed true to the queen. They sat in silence, their faces showing shock and grief. Solara sat alone in the cargo hold, away from everyone else. Marcus found her there, staring at nothing. "I have lost everything," she said when he sat beside her. Her voice was empty. "My throne, my home, my people, 10,000 years of my bloodline, and I am the one who will be remembered as the queen who lost it all." "You haven't lost yet," Marcus said. "Look around you," Solara replied bitterly. 20 survivors? 1 small ship. Kethvern has hundreds of ships and millions of soldiers. What can I possibly do against that? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "When I was 19 years old, a great storm destroyed my home city. It was called a hurricane. Wind and water that killed thousands in a single night." He paused, remembering. "I lost my mother, my sister, everyone I loved. I sat in the ruins and thought exactly what you're thinking now, that I was nothing, that everything was over." Solara looked at him, listening. "Then I got up," Marcus continued. "Because grief is a luxury the living can't afford when there's still something worth saving. I couldn't save my family, but I could save others. So I did. And then I kept going. One step at a time, one day at a time, until I became who I am now." He took her hand. It was a gesture that shocked her, contact between their species that had never happened before. But she did not pull away. "You still have people who believe in you," Marcus said. "You still have a chance to take back what's yours, but only if you choose to fight." Solara stared at their joined hands. Silver and pink, alien and human. 2 species that should have been enemies, connected by something neither could explain. How? She asked. How can we fight an empire with 20 people? Marcus smiled. It was the smile of a warrior who had seen impossible odds before. Let me show you how humans fight. They traveled for weeks, hiding in asteroid fields and abandoned stations, always staying one step ahead of Kethvern's hunters. But they were not just running, they were planning. Marcus taught the Valanthi things they had never imagined. The Dominion had always fought with massive fleets and overwhelming force. They lined up their ships and attacked directly, crushing enemies with superior numbers. It was the only way they knew. Humans fought differently. You don't attack strength with strength, Marcus explained, drawing diagrams on a display screen. You attack weakness. You hit them where they don't expect it. You disappear before they can respond. You make them afraid of shadows. He called it guerrilla warfare. The Valanthi had no word for it. They started small. A supply convoy destroyed by mines that appeared from nowhere. A communication station sabotaged in ways that could not be traced. Rumors spread through enemy crews about a ghost ship that struck without warning. Then they reached the outer colonies, where Solara's loyalists had been gathering. The Queen had more supporters than she knew. People who had stayed silent out of fear, but were ready to fight when given hope. The rebellion grew. Marcus trained them all. He taught them to think like humans, to be unpredictable, to use their enemies' expectations against them. The Valanthi were fast learners. Soon, small cells were operating throughout the Dominion, striking at Kethvern's forces and vanishing into the void. Your tactics are madness, one Valanthi commander told Marcus after a successful raid. They make no logical sense. That's why they work, Marcus replied. The enemy can't predict what doesn't follow rules. As months passed, the tide began to turn. Kethvern's forces were everywhere, but they could not be everywhere at once. Every time they concentrated to crush one rebel group, 3 others struck somewhere else. The traitor general was fighting an enemy he did not understand, and through it all, yes, Solara transformed. The frightened queen who had fled her throne was gone. In her place stood a warrior who led from the front. She learned human tactics with a hunger that surprised even Marcus. She became unpredictable, creative, dangerous. Her people began to call her the Silver Storm. You were right, she told Marcus one night after another victory. They stood on the bridge of their growing fleet, watching stars that were slowly becoming theirs again. Hope is powerful. I feel it now. I understand why humans keep fighting, even when they should surrender. Marcus looked at her. The queen he had met in chains was nothing like the woman beside him now. She was magnificent. We're going to win, he said. Yes, Solara agreed. We are. She turned to face him fully. In the starlight, her silver skin glowed like the moon he remembered from Earth. When this is over, she said softly, what will you do? Will you return to your people? It was a question Marcus had not allowed himself to think about. He looked at the queen, this alien woman who had gone from his captor to something far more complex. Don't know, he admitted. I'm not sure where I belong anymore. Solara reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were cool against his skin. Perhaps, she said, you belong wherever you choose to belong. The war was not over. The hardest battles were still to come. But in that moment, standing together in the light of distant stars, Marcus and Solara both knew that something had changed between them forever. They were no longer queen and prisoner. They were something new. Something neither had words for yet. And together, they would shake the foundations of an empire. The war continued for many months. Solara's forces grew stronger with each passing day. Systems that had fallen to Kethvern began to rebel against him. The people were tired of his brutal rule, his executions. His endless demands for loyalty proved through blood. The Silver Storm was coming for her throne. But war was not all fighting. There were quiet moments between battles. Hours stolen from the chaos where Marcus and Solara found themselves drawn together in ways neither could explain. One evening, they sat on a cliff overlooking a valley on a moon they had just liberated. 2 suns were setting, painting the sky in colors that did not exist on Earth. The air was cold, but neither seemed to notice. Tell me about love, Solara said suddenly. Marcus looked at her, surprised by the question. What do you want to know? Everything. The Velanthi do not love as you describe it. Our bonds are psychic, arranged by families for political advantage. We feel connection. Yes, loyalty, duty. But what you describe in your human stories is different. It sounds like madness. Marcus laughed softly. It is madness, in a way. Love doesn't follow rules. You can't control who you love. You can't decide to stop loving someone just because it would be easier. It happens to you whether you want it or not. That sounds terrifying, Solara said. It is, Marcus agreed. It's also the most powerful thing in the universe. People have died for love. They've killed for it. They've crossed oceans and fought armies and given up everything they had, all for love. Solara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was very soft. How do you know if you are in love? Marcus turned to look at her. The dying light made her silver skin glow like captured starlight. Her purple eyes reflected the twin suns. You know, he said slowly, when someone becomes more important than yourself, when their happiness matters more than your own, when you would do anything, sacrifice anything, just to see them smile. Their eyes met. Something passed between them, electric and undeniable. I think, Solara whispered, I am beginning to understand. The moment was broken by an alarm from their communicators. Duty called them back to war. 2 weeks later, disaster struck. Kethfern had captured 5 of Solara's best commanders. He sent a message throughout the Dominion, his face twisted with cruel satisfaction. Your rebellion ends now, he announced. Surrender yourself, false queen, or watch your generals die one by one. You have 3 days. The rebels gathered to discuss their options. Some wanted to attack immediately. Others suggested negotiating. A few whispered that perhaps surrender was the only choice. Marcus stood in the back, listening. Then he stepped forward. I will go, he said. Everyone turned to stare at him. The flagship's defenses are designed to detect Velanthi psychic signatures, Marcus continued. Humans don't have those signatures. I can get close in ways none of you can. It is a suicide mission, one commander protested. The flagship is surrounded by hundreds of ships. Even if you reached it, you would never escape. Maybe, Marcus admitted. But those 5 commanders, no secrets that could destroy our entire rebellion. We can't let Kethfern break them. And we can't let our people think we abandon our own. Solara grabbed his arm and pulled him aside, away from the others. Cannot do this, she said. Her voice shook with emotion she was struggling to control. You could die. I've been ready to die since the day your people captured me, Marcus replied. But now, I have something to live for. That makes me more dangerous, not less. I forbid it. Solara's hands gripped his arms tightly. I am your queen. I order you to stay. Marcus gently took her hands in his. You're not my queen, he said softly. You never were. I follow you because I choose to, because I believe in you. Because I... He stopped, struggling with words that felt too big. Because what? Solara demanded. Marcus looked into her eyes. Because somewhere along the way, you became more important to me than my own life. And I will not watch you lose this war because I was too afraid to act. Tears appeared in Solara's eyes. Velanthi rarely cried, and never in public. But here, in this private moment, she let them fall. If you die, she whispered, I do not know what I will do. Marcus pulled her close, holding her against his chest. It was strange, this embrace between species so different. But it also felt right, and I'll just have to not die, he said. 12 volunteers joined him. 8 Velanthi soldiers who believed in the cause and for humans. Marcus had not known there were other humans in the rebellion until now. They were prisoners like him, freed during various raids, who had chosen to stay and fight. Humans stick together, one of them said with a grin. Let's go save some aliens. The mission was everything Marcus had promised it would be. Dangerous, deadly, insane. They approached the flagship in a stolen shuttle, pretending to be a supply ship. When they were close enough, they cut through the hull and infiltrated the massive vessel. The corridors were crawling with guards, but Marcus had studied Valenthi patrol patterns for months. He knew their weaknesses. They moved like shadows, striking fast and disappearing before alarms could be raised. One by one, they reached the cells where the commanders were held. The locks were complex, but the human engineers in the team had learned a few tricks. Everything was going well until they reached the final cell. Kethvern was waiting for them. The human, the traitor general, said, surrounded by dozens of soldiers, "I knew you would come. Your species is predictable in its foolish bravery." Marcus raised his weapon, knowing it was hopeless. They were outnumbered 5-1. "Kill them all," Kethvern ordered. What happened next was something even Marcus did not expect. The freed commanders attacked from behind, using weapons they had hidden. The Valanthi soldiers and Marcus's team fought with a ferocity born of desperation. And the humans did what humans do best. They refused to give up. The battle was brutal and bloody. Half the team fell, but in the chaos, Marcus reached Kethvern's position and fought him one-on-one. The general was bigger, stronger, faster. Marcus was smaller and should have died in seconds, but Marcus had something Kethvern did not. Something the general could never understand. He had something worth fighting for. When Marcus finally found an opening, his blade found Kethvern's shoulder. It was not a killing blow, but it was enough. The general stumbled back, shocked that a human had wounded him. "Fall back," someone shouted. The team grabbed the last commander and ran. They escaped.
Ow.
Barely their shuttle was shot to pieces by the time it reached friendly space. Half the team was dead. Marcus himself was bleeding from a dozen wounds, but they had one. When the shuttle landed, Solara was waiting. She saw Marcus stumble down the ramp, covered in blood, barely able to stand. She ran to him. She caught him as he fell. She held him against her, not caring who was watching. Not caring about protocol or politics or the thousand eyes staring at their queen, embracing a human. "You came back," she whispered. Marcus replied weakly. Solara held him tighter. In that moment, she finally understood what humans called love. It was not madness. It was not weakness. It was the strongest force she had ever known, and she knew with absolute certainty that she would never let him go. The final battle came 6 months later. Above Valanthos Prime, the throne world of the Dominion. During those months, something incredible had happened. Earth had made contact, a human exploration fleet. Searching for their missing commander, had stumbled into Dominion space. When they learned that Marcus Cole was alive and fighting beside an alien queen, they did not flee. They joined the war. For humanity, it was their first true interstellar conflict. For the Valanthi rebels, it was the reinforcement they desperately needed. Human ships were smaller than Valanthi vessels, but they were fast and unpredictable. Human soldiers fought with a ferocity that shocked even the most hardened Valanthi warriors. Together, the Allied fleet surrounded Valanthos Prime. Kethvern had fortified the planet with everything he had left. His supporters had dwindled as system after system fell to Solara's forces, but those who remained were fanatics. They would fight to the death. On the bridge of her flagship, Queen Solara stood before a massive display showing the enemy positions. Marcus stood beside her, fully healed and ready for the battle ahead. Human and Valanthi officers worked together around them, a sight that would have been unthinkable a year ago. "He's dug in deep," Marcus observed. "Getting through those defenses won't be easy." "Nothing about this war has been easy," Solara replied. "But we have not come this far to fail now." She turned to address her fleet. "Warriors of the Dominion, soldiers of Earth, today we end this war. Today we take back our home. Today we prove that courage and hope are stronger than fear and tyranny." Her voice rang through every ship in the fleet, for those who fell, for those who waited for freedom, for the future we will build together. Attack. The sky above Valanthos Prime erupted in fire. Ships clashed in the void, exchanging weapons, fire that lit up the darkness like violent stars. Human fighters weaved between massive Valanthi cruisers, striking at weak points that larger ships could not reach. Rebel vessels pushed through enemy lines, taking terrible losses but never stopping. Marcus commanded a strike force of mixed human and Velanthi soldiers. Their mission was to create an opening in the orbital defenses so Solara's flagship could reach the planet. It was brutal work. Ships exploded around them. Friends died in flames. But they kept pushing forward. Almost there. Marcus shouted as another enemy cruiser fell to their combined assault. Keep pressing. The opening appeared. Solara's flagship dove through, heading straight for the royal palace, where Kethvern waited. The landing was rough. Enemy fire tore at the ship's hull as it descended through the atmosphere. But the pilot was skilled, and the ship held together long enough to crash into the palace courtyard. Solara was the first one out, her blade glowing with deadly light. Her personal guard followed, cutting through the palace defenders with fierce determination. Marcus fought beside her, watching her back as she had watched his so many times before. They carved a path through the palace. Room by room, corridor by corridor, the fighting was savage. Kethvern's loyalists knew that defeat meant death, and they fought like cornered animals. But Solara's forces were fighting for something greater than survival. They were fighting for freedom. Finally, they reached the throne room. Kethvern stood before the throne that he had stolen, wearing armor that pulsed with dark energy. He was surrounded by his elite guards, the last of his loyal soldiers. "So the false queen returns," he snarled. "Come to die in your father's house?" "I come to take back what is mine," Solara replied, her voice cold as space. "Surrender now, and I will grant you a quick death. Fight, and I will make it slow." Kethvern laughed. "You are still weak, little queen. You think your human pet has made you strong? He has made you soft. He has contaminated you with alien emotions that have no place in a Velanthi ruler." Marcus stepped forward, but Solara held out her arm to stop him. She said, "This one is mine." She walked toward Kethvern, her blade raised. The general's guards moved to intercept her, but Solara's own warriors engaged them. Filling the throne room with the sounds of combat, Kethvern drew his own weapon, a massive blade that crackled with energy. He was bigger than Solara, stronger, more experienced in combat. He had killed her father. He had taken her throne. He had tried to destroy everything she loved, but Solara was not the same frightened queen who had fled this palace a year ago. She was the Silver Storm, and she had learned to fight like a human. Their blades met with a sound like thunder. Kethvern attacked with brutal force, trying to overwhelm her with strength. Solara danced around his strikes, faster than he expected. Finding openings where none should exist, she was unpredictable, creative, dangerous. She was everything Marcus had taught her to be. The fight seemed to last forever. Both combatants bled from multiple wounds. The throne room shook with the force of their battle. But slowly, steadily, Solara gained the advantage. Kethvern stumbled. His blade arm dropped for just a moment. It was enough. Solara's blade found his heart. The traitor general looked down at the weapon in his chest with an expression of complete disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "You are weak. You were always weak." "I was never weak," Solara replied. "I just needed someone to show me my strength." Kethvern fell. The throne room went silent. Then, one by one, the remaining enemy soldiers dropped their weapons and knelt. The war was over. Word spread across the Dominion like wildfire. The queen had returned. The traitor was dead. A new age was beginning. In the days that followed, Solara began the work of rebuilding. She abolished the slave caste that had existed for thousands of years. She opened borders that had been sealed since before human civilization began. She invited Earth to become the Dominion's first true ally. Equal partners in a future neither species could have imagined alone. The coronation ceremony was held 1 month later, in the same throne room where Kethvern had died. Representatives from across the Dominion attended, along with ambassadors from Earth who watched with wonder at this alien spectacle. Solara wore robes of pure white, and a new crown of floating crystals orbited her head. She looked like a goddess made of starlight. But when the ceremony reached its highest moment, when she should have stood alone before her people as tradition demanded, she did something that broke 10,000 years of custom. She called Marcus to stand beside her. The crowd gasped. Whispers spread through the assembly. A human beside the queen? An alien at the throne? Marcus walked forward, wearing a simple uniform that bore symbols of both Earth and the Dominion. He stood next to Solara and took her hand in front of everyone. "This man saved my life," Solara announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "He saved my throne. He saved my soul. He is not my servant or my subject. He is my equal. He is my choice. And he will stand beside me, today and always." The crowd was silent. Then, slowly, applause began. It grew and grew until it filled the throne room like thunder. Later, when the ceremony was over and the crowds had gone, above them, human and Valanthe ships flew together in formation, their lights intertwining like the threads of a new tapestry. Solara leaned into Marcus's embrace, allowing herself to be simply a woman instead of a queen. "If only for this moment, I was born to rule an empire," she whispered. Her voice meant only for him. "I was raised to need no one, to stand alone, to be above all others. But you showed me that strength does not mean solitude. You taught me that choosing to need someone is the bravest thing anyone can do." She looked up at him, her purple eyes shining. "I belong to you, Earthling," she said. "Not because I'm weak, because I choose you. With all my heart, with all my power, with everything I am, I choose you." Marcus held her tighter, feeling her heart beat against his chest. This queen of an alien empire, this woman who had started as his captor and become his entire world. "And I belong to you," he replied. "That's what we humans do. We find someone worth everything, and we never let go." Above them, the stars burned bright with the promise of tomorrow. Two species, once strangers, now bound together by war and hope, and something neither had words for until they found each other. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly how it should be.